Welcome to Two Balls and a Mic. Today we are ending a long week of interviews, the first week of the year, right? It's not. I don't even know anymore. But we have a great interview today. Pretty much a GOAT here in San Diego sports. You know him from the Kept Faith podcast. You also know him for running recently for political office. We might get into it a little bit, but want to go ahead and welcome the great Dallas Mclaughlin. How are you doing, man?
Oh, that was such a nice intro. Thanks, guys. Now I'm doing really good.
Hey, that's what we like to hear.
Doing fine, but then you guys are so nice. Now it's great.
I mean, it could go downhill from here. You never really know. But honestly, from a fellow San Diego sports fan, from a fellow San Diego Padre fan, there's a lot to be happy about. You don't have to deal with, and we'll get to it in a bit, this guy over here, Mr. LA Dodger fan, but I know.
That's too bad. I didn't know you like stabbing people. Good for you.
But let's get into it a little bit, Dallas. So obviously, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if you've noticed. But
I haven't.
But here we are, 2021, last year for the San Diego Padres. It was a really good season. As you can see from the side of my cap, we got a postseason little thing on our hats now.
Congrats.
Thank you. But how did you enjoy last season? How did you enjoy the truncated COVID season? How are you enjoying sports in general?
Oh, man. This last Padres season was probably the best thing that could have happened in 2020. Like, 2020 is such a shit show. Nothing's going right. Everyone's dying. Trump was alive and a thing. Like, nothing could get worse. And so the fact that the Padres were good at all was an unbelievable, uplifting thing. And the fact that the season was truncated. And so there was basically games like every day. It was every day you got to just be happy and watch something and take your mind off everything that was going on. Not to mention the brown uniforms were back. I mean, that alone was good enough to get me through whatever 2020 was going to be. But the fact that they're actually good, and except for in the postseason, were competitive against the Dodgers, made the Dodgers look like fools, like they normally are.
Yes.
It was a great season. I couldn't have been happier. In fact, during the last week and into the postseason, my wife started filming me reacting to games because I was being so ridiculous. And I can't remember how, like, the last time I was that excited or sad at every single swing of the bat before. It was just awesome.
No, and I was right there with you, as was the rest of San Diego. And I mean, what can we say about a season that finally got us? Well, we finally got into the postseason for once. And not only that, we actually were able to finally beat the St. Louis Cardinals in a postseason. And I think the season got canceled right after that. Promptly after, there was no winner, and everybody went home. I think something like that.
Unless you wanted to win the World Series illegitimately, then basically your season was over. It was
the trophy counts.
The trophy counts. Okay, all right. I'll take your word for it.
I mean, that's the obvious question there, because you celebrate it, obviously, Dodger fan. And what is your rebuke to all of us Padres fans is?
I mean, okay, so I'm new to baseball, but I like everything in LA. I was born in LA, so I like the Dodgers. I like the Lakers. And actually getting into baseball this season, knowing how good the Dodgers are, but knowing also their cursing playoffs and how bad they usually are in the World Series, I was pretty stoked that they actually won it. And at the end of the day, though, I do live in San Diego, and if there's a team that is going to beat us eventually, I kind of hope it's the Padres. I don't know Dodgers fans gonna say that. But I'm not an ordinary Dodgers fan, to be honest. But
yeah, you're really not.
I want San Diego to have something to look forward to when it comes to sport. I mean, the Chargers fucking left. The Padres is pretty much what's big here, and for them to eventually make a World Series and eventually win it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, you're no longer a Dodger fan, by the way.
You know what's funny is, like, I think being a Padre fan, obviously my entire life, growing up in San Diego, like it does, I hate to say that it does make baseball a better product when the Dodgers are competitive and in the playoffs, because not only does it make another coast relevant, because I mean, let's be honest, baseball is mainly an East Coast thing for a lot of people, but at the same time, it gives the Padres a lot of a lot of media time because they're always playing the Padres. So I think it's always a plus for the Padres if the Dodgers are good. And now we have, I mean, going into 2021, it's the teams are so equal.
Yeah.
I mean, they really, really are, that it's going to be probably some of the most fun baseball since '98.
And it's crazy because this team is, statistically and what this team is can do compared to '98, it's a super team. It's a, comparing an old Corvette. Yeah, it's nice and sexy, but now you got yourself a supercar with the V12 engine, and now to compete against other supercars in a sense too. Yeah. But what do you make of our, some say, the greatest stable of Padres pitchers at this point? I know your second to last, latest article on the Kept Faith was about good old Sherriff, Mr. Paddock, and Mr. Good Old Two Pitch. And I feel that you actually had a really good take on what we should do with the Sherriff, Chris Paddock, next season.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you reading it. If you want to, keptfaith.com is where you can go to check out that article. Yeah, I mean, listen, to just cover Chris Paddock first, I had an opportunity to interview him when he was on the Storm, and he was really, really nice. He had just come off one of the more dominating games I've ever seen somebody pitch in person in Lake Elsinore, and I was so excited to talk to him. And he was really nice, but the big thing even back then was, how is he going to survive with two pitches? And there are pitchers that do it, but most of those pitchers are people who pitch in relief or are closers. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at Hoffman, you look at Mariano Rivera, they had that one devastating pitch. I can't think of the name of Lee Smith, he had one devastating pitch. When you're dealing with that, it's like, as a pitcher, you have to kind of figure it out. Either do I add more pitches, or do I find myself in relief, either willingly or not willingly? And I think that the best thing you can do with somebody like Paddock is, instead of just pushing him out there every fifth start and seeing if he can figure it out, seeing if it was just a sophomore slump, I feel like for a personality like his, it's just going to do more damage than not. Like, he's basically like Jake Peavy. And I don't know if you guys remember Jake Peavy.
Oh yeah.
Dude broke his rib because he got so mad at a start going badly. It's like, these guys are so emotional, and I just don't think you want to play that game with him. So it's like, why not try him out in something else? He could be a totally dominating closer if he really wanted to. And I just love that he's already got the mystique. It's like the Sherriff, game's on the line. The Sheriff's coming in to close out the game and kick the people, kick the robbers out of town, or whatever you want to do. I don't know. But I just think it makes a lot more sense than struggling through every fifth start like last season. I mean, last season, oh my God, it was just throwing up meatballs, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was disappointing, especially after what we saw from that rookie season. And well, and even not to cut you off, but even in the end of his rookie season, the whole time people were like, he's so exciting, he's gonna fall off, it's gonna come back down to earth. And he did, but the first part of the season was so dominating that his inflated numbers in the second half didn't look that bad, but he still came back to earth. And I got attacked by a lot of people on Twitter who are like, this is the stupidest idea. He's never, he's a good enough pitch. I'm like, okay, I guess prove it. He's got to prove it. And that's the point of the article. It's like, prove it. If you can't, then you're going to get screwed. Or you could take the high road and try to figure something out for yourself. But what it's an opinion piece. People get mad. It's the internet. No, absolutely. And with that, let me hear what your 2021 starting rotation would be in that case. So, the season started right now. Obviously, Clevenger is still out. Who knows with Lamet? Let's put him at a healthy scratch. Let's say Lamet makes it, but ideally, 2021. What is your championship? Even maybe winning starting pitcher lineup.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, they can go toe to toe with the Dodgers now, which they could not do this last season. That was obvious. But I would say, obviously you Darvish and Blake Snell. I think you actually pitch you as your ace, to be honest. More experience, a lot of experience, and then obviously Lamet, if you can be there, Lamet, and I think that you take flyers on the other guys. Like you throw out Gore, you throw out Morahone, like you pitch these guys because you now have three starters that are going to be there for you every time, in theory. So why not take flyers? And listen, if Paddock figures into that mix, then fantastic. And I know I'm missing a fourth pitcher, and I can't think of off the top of my head.
I mean, so it's Mclaughlin. Not next year. Clevenger's out. Zach Davies got shipped out. Yu Darvish.
Somebody I'm missing.
See, is that the Paddock space that we're always kind of filling in with?
Maybe it is. Maybe it probably is. It probably is that Paddock space. and listen, I mean, I like Paddock a lot. He's so exciting, in the Padres Twitterverse really gets behind him when he does well. So it's like, if he can figure it out, fucking great. But like, if he can't, then we can't have another maybe he'll work it out. Like, if it's in a maybe he'll work it out scenario, you need to give those innings to younger pitchers who have yet to prove themselves.
Yeah, so I mean, with all these new signings that the Padres are having, it's already turning some heads. So as a Dodgers fan, from a Padres fan to a Dodgers fan, you tell me, should I be worried this upcoming season, or should I be more worried in 2022?
I hate how you ask that, the way you ask it.
It was so sincere. Yeah, you should be worried. I mean, but here's the thing too, that I think Dodger fans, listen, I do not go to Dodgers Padres games live. I don't go to the stadium. Dodgers fans are just as insufferable as Cubs fans.
Yes.
They could be losing. They could be 25 games under 500 and still be like, we're going to win it all this year. They're delusional, sometimes sad, and frightening a lot of the times.
Agreed.
But I mean, that's why their fan bases are so great also. But you should be worried. I mean, like, you have the championship though. So it's like, you can kind of sit back. If this is the year that you don't repeat, then it's fine. You still got one, and you still got a young core for a while. But I think that this whole like scenario where I think it was Molly Knight was like, they're the team of the decade in the NL West, completely forgetting the Giants won 2 championships in that decade.
Right.
It was such a weird comment, but I don't think, I think this is the first legitimate threat. Like, those Giants teams just pulled off a lucky hit after lucky. I mean, Bruce Bochy's a genius. There was no rhyme or reason to why those Giants teams were any good. I mean, you remember like Russ Ortiz not Russ Ortiz. I'm going too far back. But like Tim Lincecum was saggy arming it,
at the end.
Such a weird team, the Giants. But you should be worried, man. I mean, but that's, I think, going to make it way more fun.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I mean, if we're allowed to go, man. And that's one of the, things that just made this season just so heartbreaking, is the fact that the only people that really got to see live Padres baseball was if you rented out or lived in one of those loft apartments across from Petco. It's a shame, because this is what we've been waiting for. This is the process trusted, and we weren't be able to make it there. And who knows, if Wil Myers was going to be able to put up the numbers that he did with people there with a little bit of pressure.
It's about fucking time is what it is.
Right.
I mean, I literally, I've been writing about the Padres now for 13 years. And there's times where I remember writing articles about like trying to get excited about Neffy Cruz and, or not Neffy Cruz, Davy Cruz and, Neffy Perez and, Ray Langford. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, they keep telling you this is, just wait. Yeah. We're putting it together. And even when we got Myers and we extended Myers and Solarte, it was like, well, we're planning for the, 2019, 2019. And then 2018 was here. Oh no, 2020 is going to be, let's just say, Christ almighty. Like, it's about time. And I'm fine with the process. Myers, my take on Myers has always been the same. Anywhere he goes, he just can't be the superstar. He can't have that pressure. And this year he was finally the guy who just could bat 5th or 6th, and it didn't need to be his fault either way. You know what I mean? Like, if he struck out, it was like, oh, Wil Myers. And if he hit a home run, you're like, well, that's why we got Wil Myers. Like, he could just be the guy when he needed to be. And he obviously loved it. I mean, you watched him play this year. He was so happy.
Yeah, he was enjoying himself, and probably got himself some Midwest Mexican food shipped out finally, and just getting out of this crappy West food, just Mexican food desert.
Take, man.
And to do it in the All-Star game where you're representing the home team,
Right?
man, it was
doesn't make any sense. Like I've never. I mean, listen, I've been fortunate enough to tour the country, and I've never ever had Mexican food anywhere that was as good as San Diego Mexican food. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Like I don't get it. Even in LA, there's like, I mean, it's like north of the 52 even. It gets real sketchy. I just don't get it.
So while we're on Myers, I mean, tell us about that time. I believe it was a charity.
The striking out for epilepsy happened September 22nd, 2019. We actually had Jono Zale on, who was also featured on that fateful day. So, I mean, you know, for those of you who haven't checked it out, Kirby Yates and his wife partners with have a foundation on epilepsy. I believe his wife suffers from it, but it was a fundraiser. And Jono Zale, you know, he was telling us about, you know, the 3 C's of comedy shows, where the last C is corporate, and that's like a charity, charity, which is corporate, just, you know, for free. But he also told us that that was a day where Mr. Wil Myers decided to pass out, hit himself on the head, and I mean, what was your viewpoint from that?
I feel like I should probably go watch Jono's episode first before I comment. But man, Jono had a rough night that night himself. I don't know if he told you that part of it.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Well, like, here's the thing. We were both contacted, and they said, hey, you know, we're doing this event. The club contacted us, and they said, we're doing this event. And we were wondering if you were interested, because we wanted to book comics who we think, one, are funny, which is flattering in itself, but also that they know about baseball and the Padres. And Jono and I obviously know a lot about the Padres, and so I immediately signed up. I'm like, I don't care if it doesn't pay; it doesn't matter. I'm just stoked to go do it. And I didn't know what it was going to be at all. I just thought it was going to be Kirby and his wife, and it was like you could pay to be there. I didn't know that any other pitchers were going to be there. I had no idea what the setup was going to be. We were just told that we were going to go do sets. That was it. That was literally what was communicated to us. You're going to go do comedy. And we were like, sweet. And we showed up, and we're in the back. They told us to get there like 3 hours early. And Jono didn't, because Jono has this kind of fake ego about him. That is kind of his gag, his bit, and it's so funny. But he showed up maybe like 45 minutes before start time. But we were in the back, and they were like, and like Kirby's wife, Ashley, you know, she's like, hey, you know, don't hold back, have fun, you know, have fun. And we're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, is it clean? You want me to work clean? And they're like, oh no, you don't have to work clean. It's fine. You know, there'll be a lot of alcohol flowing. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, but you know, like, have fun with Kirby. And I'm like, oh, like, you want us to kind of make fun of Kirby? And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And we're like, okay, all right. And then the only thing they said was like, she said, don't mention Andy Green, because he had been fired, I think that day.
Same day. Yep.
Yeah. So they're like, don't mention that. And I'm like, all right. And so we went into the back. We're sitting in the back, and then like somebody came back who was helping organize, and they're like, okay, so you got your roast stuff ready, right? And we were like, Jono and I were like, what? Like roast stuff? And they're like, yeah, like, it's like, you're gonna roast them, right?
Oh my god.
We're like, who? And they're like, the Padres. We're like, the Padres, like Kirby Yates? And they're like, no, like the team's here. We're like, wait, what? Like, it was just literally like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
And so in 30 minutes, and then we were told that we had to do 45 minutes each, which at a corporate is the worst thing you could possibly do. I mean, corporate gigs are like 15 minutes max, maybe 20, maybe 30 if you're told to do crowd work with material, but they didn't really even care about us doing material. So like a 45-minute roast, like, it's just not going to work. So Jono literally told the guy who was running the light, he just goes, we're going to both do 30. And the guy goes, I was told 45. And Jono was like, we're going to do 30. And I'm like, whatever. So Jono and I sat, and we just started writing jokes like as quickly as we could about the players that were there. And so I went out first, and I'll tell you, man, I've talked about this day a lot. one, you're a kid immediately because in the front row, there's all these guys that you like adore. You know, the relief pitching core was right in the front row, and off to the side of the corner was Rod Barajas, which was amazing because I've always been a Rod Barajas fan even when I was a kid. So it was really cool. It was such a cool thing to see. And then I go out there, right, and I just start laying in with some of the jokes I had written, and they all worked. Like every joke worked.
Nice.
I literally, it was like I was on cloud nine, man. I was laying into him though. I wasn't holding back. Like I was just telling them that they were shitty.
I mean, you were just talking to them about as a fan, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like half of it at that point was just me being a fan. And then I kept interjecting throughout the set at Wil Myers because I could see him in the middle, and dude looked just out of his mind. And so I kept like, hey, hey, Will, you're keeping along, right? You're staying with me? You're here? Are you here? And then I kept making like weed jokes at his expense, and the team like loved it. I mean, they were dying that I kept making fun of Will, and he kind of started to look like he was not okay with it. And so I stopped. And then my set was over. It was super fun, so fun. And there was supposed to be a break between me and Jono, which is a terrible idea in general, but they still did it. And so we had a break. I go out there, I go up to Wil Myers, and I'm like, hey man, I saw you look kind of bummed. I apologize if it got too harsh. And he's like, no, we're good. We're good. And I'm like, all right, good. Like it matters. Like he's ever going to see me again in his life. But I was like, okay, good. And then I walk to the back, right? Ashley and Kirby get on stage. They're talking. While they're talking, I can see Will stand up. He just like falls. Just lays it. I mean, it just falls. Like, I don't know why. Like, the only thing I can imagine is if he was trying to adjust himself in the chair and he missed his chair when he went back down. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it was. But he falls, and just hush goes over everybody. And the consensus was there was a lot of people there with epilepsy, so somebody thought somebody was having a seizure. So that was like the thing. And Ashley was saying from the stage, because they were doing like a raffle, and Ashley from the stage was going, we have doctors here, there's plenty of doctors here, don't worry about it, we're getting it taken care of, stuff like that. And so people were rushing to the scene, everybody was looking around. It was the weirdest thing. And then, and I'm sure John told you this, but I'm sitting in the back and I'm on Twitter. And so many Padres Twitter people were in attendance. So they're all tweeting what's going on, but nobody can really see what's happening because it was really dark. So they're all speculating, and then people are tweeting at me like, what's going on down there? Texting me, what happened? Did Wil Myers die? Like, and I'm like, I don't know, you know. And then all this stuff is happening, and Ashley's like, all right, your next comic, Jono. While all this is happening. And Jono literally walks out and has no idea what to do. He tries to do material, but they're like lifting up Myers and taking him into the green room. And then the paramedics come and they would go into like all during his set. I mean, it was just a shit show. Like, I felt so bad for Jono. He kind of got him back like halfway through his set, but the air was just sucked out of the room. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare for him. And then obviously Wil Myers didn't have a good night either. But I just love the spin that they're like, oh, he was dehydrated. Dehydrated. I'm like, I guess, sure. Why not?
Exactly.
I remember Donald saying that, I think it was Ashley that said, okay, we're going to power it through.
Oh, yeah. We're going to power through.
And he says that he had to step over Wil Myers to get to stage.
Yeah. Because they kicked him out of the green room because they were bringing Will back to the green room.
Man, that's...
dude, that was, what a night. I mean, it's so funny because John and I had way different experiences. Like
I love hearing both perspectives.
Like, part of the deal was that we did it, and then we got to go on the field for batting practice. We got to pick a game.
Oh, wow.
And go on the field for batting practice and hang out and stuff. And so Jono picked his game the day of the event.
Oh.
And then, no. And so nobody knew him.
Yeah.
But I picked mine for like a week after. And so we went, me and Nick from the Kept Faith, I brought him with me, and we went down there and stuff. And all the guys were coming over and saying hi to me and stuff. And again, like immediately I was a kid. You know? Like that night at the event, like Manny Machado came up to me and he was like, you were really funny, man. That was great. And I was like, yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Mr. Machado, of course. Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Yeah, was I funny? Whatever. If I wasn't, that's fine too. You can hit me. I don't care.
I mean, Machado could say anything. Hey, former Dodger, actually.
Yeah.
But definitely for like a quick second, just kick some Achilles ankles while I was there and stuff. Didn't win a World Series. But I mean, that's a great Padre memory in itself. You know, in doing some research, Dallas, I mean, I'm a little older than Chiva over here. A little older. I was still there. I remember 1998. I remember the team. I remember everything after the 1998s. But obviously,
the
you know,
Klesko years,
the Ryan Klesko years, the Khalil Green while he was still sane years.
Do you remember? I don't mean to cut you off, but do you remember like when they tried to sell Klesko and Nevin? Like that was their package for you to go see Padre baseball.
Yes,
with Ryan Klesko and Phil Nevin. Jesus,
Phil Nevin. I don't know. It might have been my uneducated Mexican baseball perspective, but Phil Nevin was the greatest for me for a while. I don't know why, but I was like a really huge Phil Nevin
didn't have a
fan.
Choice.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, who's gonna be your guy? It was like, who was our first baseman? I feel like Dave Magadan was like the starting first baseman for a year. Oh my God, what a mess. Anyway,
but there are some good memories, and you know, in doing some research, obviously, I found out, according to you, that you are a man who not necessarily enjoys, but does leak from the eyes sometimes. Did that happen at any point during Tony Gwynn's last game? I know you were there. Trevor Hoffman's 500 saves, or Ricky Henderson breaking the all-time runs record.
Yeah, I was so, you know, and it's funny because during those years, like Hoffman's save and Ricky Henderson, when he came back to break those two records that year, nobody was going to games, and it was I think you could get like an outfield seat for like $15. So it was, you know, Saturday, and then we would go Saturday, we'd go Sunday, we'd go Tuesday, like. It was just what you would do because it was so cheap, and you'd buy the cheapest seat and then you'd go as far down as you could because nobody cared. So I got to be there for a lot of cool events that I wouldn't have otherwise been there for. Hoffman was amazing. Just seeing it was amazing. Ricky Henderson's two record-breaking moments were cool because it was just, you can't really like figure out when those are going to happen.
Yeah.
They're just going to happen when they happen. So it's like you have to be there, you know, as many times as you can to catch it. And I just happened to be at both games, which when he hit the home run to break the all-time runs record and slid into home when he was trotting bases, that was really cool. I think the only time that I teared up was when I went to one of the last games at Qualcomm before they moved to Petco. And they did this big, huge thing with the chicken at the end of the game. And it wasn't so much that I teared up at the chicken, but it was like they had these lights and they were shining on him, and then the lights like slowly faded, and like they had like stuff on the Jumbotron, and everything had just faded out. And yeah, I teared up then for sure. Cause it's just, you know, I loved the Q, like Jack Murphy. That was home to me. And it took me a while to get used to Petco. My friend Joe and I bought season tickets the first year of Petco. Just because we wanted to be there.
Do you still have the beach towels?
No,
I love those beach towels. Greatest beach towels of all time. Opening season.
Hold on, you guys, we're videoing. Hold on one second.
Yeah, go for it. How old were you in 2004?
I was...
Oh, I should have been more prepared. I apologize.
It's all good.
I just have these in my office, and this is the game one ticket.
Oh wow!
With Mark Loretta on.
Oh wow!
Yeah, game one ticket. Thursday, April 8th, and then we were talking about it, but my Trevor Hoffman 500 save bobblehead.
Nice.
I don't know if it still works.
I got my Trevor. One of the 20 in his little car.
Oh yeah. I have so many of these little stupid things. My wife tries to throw them out, which I understand because they just take up so much room. But yeah, that first or that last game that Jack Murphy was probably my saddest moment. And like you mentioned Tony Gwynn's last game, which I think I've told this story before on a podcast, but it's not really a story. It's just a moment. But my Nick, who from the Cafe, we went to a game, and it ended up being Tony Gwynn's last starting game, the last time he ever started in a game, and none of us knew it at the time. But he hit one into the gap, as he was prone to do, and he came around first, and he was limping into second, and Nick turned to me and just said, "That's his last game." And like he was just saying it to be stupid, but he was right. Like, he pinch hit a couple more times that season, but that was it. And thinking back on it now, I consider myself fortunate to be there, I guess, but it was also really sad because, I mean, he was so unhealthy.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like I said, I've been trying to get Mr. Chiva back into baseball. Amazingly, he's the one that's actually had on-field baseball experience. I've never stepped on a diamond in my life. But just Tony Gwynn is just up there with the greatest of all time. And I was just telling you, like, it's crazy that, we're just never going to see that again. And yeah.
Well, when the thing that was cool about Tony Gwynn, I mean, and obviously everybody talks about it, but he was the greatest of all time doing one of the most basic parts of the game the best. Yeah. Like you look at, Mike Trout. Mike Trout is, Mookie Betts, Mike Trout. Who's that kid on the Dodgers that,
Corey Seager or, Gavin Lux. I'm trying to think.
Maybe it's Bellinger. I don't know, but there's always like, they're always in the consideration of who's the best right now. And Trout is like this all around amazing player. But the thing about Trout that makes Tony Gwynn a better baseball player than Mike Trout is that Mike Trout can hit, but he can't hit for average. So his career is going to be, he's going to have a shorter career at that superstar level than Tony Gwynn did, just because the only thing that he was really good at was doing all of the things pretty good. Like home runs, average, stealing bases. But even lately, his stolen bases have gone down.
Yeah.
His average has been creeping down, so he's going to have power, and he's still going to be a threat at the plate for years and years to come. But the thing that was amazing about Tony Gwynn was he could just consistently hit over 300. And who can do that? It's such a special talent. And I think you're right. I don't know if we'll see that kind of a player ever again.
Yeah, and just to finish off that thought, I was also bringing up, how unhealthy, Tony Gwynn was at that time. Pablo Sandoval, an athlete, a multi-million-dollar athlete, and there's still hope for both of us here.
I'll tell you, we joke around a lot right now, but if they signed Bartolo Colon to just to say start 5 games, I would go.
Bartolo Colon is the only reason, one of them, Tatis is even a Padres player, because Bartolo Colon hit the home run off of James Shields when they played the Mets here in San Diego. James Shields, that was probably one of his most embarrassing days, got shipped out. Tatis comes in. Thank you, Bartolo Colon. Bring it back full circle. We win the World Series next 3 years in a row. Let's go.
I'm on board. I would go to at least 3 of those starts. He is one of my favorite pitchers of all time. Just the most disaster looking of an athlete. And somehow he can still pull it off. Like, he can still do it.
Yeah, so
did you see that video recently of him mowing down
children in the Dominican? Yeah, like he's just having a blast, just destroying just the prospects of children, the dreams.
So I love it so much.
Yeah, so clearly there's players with great numbers, but sometimes they get caught using performance-enhancing drugs. So do you think those players that use those type of drugs should be considered into the Hall of Fame?
What a segue for his latest article.
Very nice. Thank you. What's funny is when it comes to writing on the Cat Faith, I do most of my writing in the off season, and I don't know why that is. So I've had 2 articles in the last couple of weeks, which is pretty rare form for me. So I appreciate you bringing them up.
100%.
Yeah, the thing I posted today about the Hall of Fame and the steroid users, like, there was an era where it wasn't illegal, and those players who played during that era should be in the Hall of Fame. Because it's silly at this point. And I know in the heat of I wrote this in the article, in the heat of the moment, we were all pissed off. Like, we all felt cheated for some reason. I don't know why, because they weren't cheating. Like, it was frowned upon, but it wasn't illegal until 2005 in baseball. So there's part of me that goes, at the time we were just mad. And more people were just mad at Bonds, which I also understand, because Bonds is a dick.
Yeah. And he said his favorite place to hit home runs were into the palm trees at Qualcomm Stadium, and that hurt.
It hurts. Yeah, I mean,
And he did.
You know, he's like some athletes are just dicks, and it's okay to think that and be that, but that just isn't going to help you when you're trying to like win people over. You know, like I remember meeting Roger Clemens, and he was a dick, and I was like, and I loved Roger Clemens growing up. I mean, honestly, I wasn't a Red Sox fan, but I loved watching him pitch, and I met him. I was so bummed. You know, whatever,
man,
like
sucks.
whatever. But you know, so I think that those people who did PEDs when PEDs were illegal, like who gives a shit? Because so many people were doing them. So you have to look at that era as the fact that let's say half of the league was doing some kind of a performance enhancing drug, cream in the clear, greenies, whatever they were doing something that helped their performance chemically. But and I easily estimate 50% of the league was doing it throughout from like 85 to 2005. So that's an era. That's an entire era of baseball. And you're just going to discount a lot of the most successful people from that era because they were doing things ungodly. Like it's so silly. And in the moment I get it. It makes sense because Sosa and McGuire gave us that amazing a couple of seasons, and then Bonds came along and, you know, was this curmudgeon who kind of ruined it. And so people were pissed, and then it became this whole thing. Well, you know what? It all came out with Bonds, but who are we fucking kidding? Like McGuire's ankles are like the size of my wrists.
Yeah.
And his legs are the size of my house. Like obviously. So it's just so silly to me. And it's too late for some of them to get in on the ballot, obviously, but they have a chance to get in through the Veterans Committee. And I really do hope the Veterans Committee hooks those guys up because they're so important to the history of the game. And what I wrote in the article too, when I was drafting it up, was that era was so important to me as a baseball fan. In the 94 strike, I was done. I hated baseball in 1994. I was 14 years old. All my heroes I was being told they were greedy because I didn't know any better. I didn't know about the owners, but they're all greedy, blah, 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 and so I hated the game. I walked away. I didn't want to even care about Padres. I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan too. So both teams, I just hated both teams. I was done. And then the Padres get to the World Series in 98. And literally it took that for me to get interested in the game. But simultaneously during that run was the McGuire Sosa home run chase. Like that late 90s was just so joyful for baseball, and to just wash over that because people were doing something that, for a moment we all thought was bad. It's just so silly and stupid. And like I read in the article, we're punishing them because it's the one thing we can control over their lives. Yeah. And it's so stupid.
And I'd recommend that ESPN documentary on that's the home run race between Sosa and McGuire. Really
Long Gone Summer, right?
Long Gone Summer, yes. And got overshadowed by obviously the Jordan documentary, Last Dance, kind of came out around the same time, but it just gives you a perspective of what America was at that time and just what the game was and what it meant. And it's just sad looking back, and it wasn't that long ago where baseball was up and roaring, and if it was because they were juicing themselves, well, let it be. Let everybody juice themselves. Require it at that point. Why not?
I think that people just forget too who was implicated in a lot of those. It's like, I mentioned some in the article, but like Juan Rincon. I mean, Ruben Rivera was busted for. I mean, come on, like these guys were. It's like they were the best in that era, and they should be. And I mentioned in the article, it's like, people don't want to ever talk about Babe Ruth. Never played against any Mexican players, against any Latino players at all. He never played against any African Americans. He played when games were only played during the day. He never had to travel. Like, there's so many things.
According to the MLB, this last couple months, they looked under a rug and found the Negro League in there. We're like, whoa, what's this? Oh, let's go.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, Babe Ruth. Sure, he was the best in that era, and that's why he's, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for that era. But like, it's just silly. So you get into all these scenarios, and then we look and we have to ignore it. It's frowned upon if you now really loved Sosa and McGuire and Barry Bonds. Who gives a shit? Like, I'm all about it.
Something I think, I don't know how we're about right now. I'm personally still team fuck the Chargers, fuck Dean Spanos. But there was a comment that I stumbled upon that was very interesting. Obviously, you see very much soccer oriented stuff, and yeah, we're talking about baseball, and it's fantastic, and I love it. But then there was a fun little nugget that I found myself with.
And good riddance to the Chargers and the NFL. Give me a soccer team.
Soccer, okay, yeah.
Right?
So is San Diego getting a soccer team?
Oh, no, San Diego's not getting a soccer team. Oh. No, not at all.
Well, guess what?
We got one.
We got one. And it's pretty damn good and impressive with the greatest American soccer player of all time. So what say you, Mr. Dallas? We have a soccer team. Are you paying attention? I know you avoided Alan Underwood and Mr. Drew Steck from the locals on TKF United on that one episode. So, I mean, what's going on?
Okay, listen, you popped out that old Tonight in San Diego clip, which kudos. That whole thing was that clip you made was about like the Soccer City deal, and I hate Dean Spanos. I hate the Chargers organization. I grew up loving the Chargers. I was a huge Chargers fan, and the kept faith. One of the things that actually got us rolling in the world of podcasts after taking break after break, but when we came back, and we've been back now for, I don't know, 6-7 years, I guess, in a row. Mm-hmm. But it was that first time that the Chargers started talking about moving. And we found out, because I have politician friends, but we found out back then, years before they left, 3 years before they left, that they were going to leave and that all of this was just posturing. Yeah. And we would tell people that, and they'd be like, no, I know, because I talked to Spanos' assistant and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm talking to the people who are in charge of the city, and they're telling me they're leaving. They know it. And this is all just for show. And, lo and behold, they were right. So I fuck the Chargers and fuck Dean Spanos. I mean, he's such a moron. Like, I know that he did it to up the value of his team, but who's going to want to buy a team that shares a stadium with a team that's more important to everybody in LA immediately? I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders are more important to people in LA than the Chargers. It's just so stupid. No. But like at the time, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. If we wanted to try to keep an NFL stadium or do a soccer team, and I have the soccer team, and I'm all for more sports, man. I mean, like, forget the NFL. I stopped watching the NFL a long time ago. I don't like the concussions. I hate the fact that every first down somebody does a celebration. That's just I'm not into that. It's not my style of the game. I don't like it. I don't like that every week a new guy gets a DUI. Like, I just think that for whatever reason, NFL players are irresponsible to no end. And like, I've been to a couple soccer games. I like soccer games. They're fun. They're exciting. And at the time, like, I'm going to say this wrong, and I apologize, but I also don't want to be racist about it. But the team from Tijuana,
Cholos Quintles.
Thank you. They were like selling out games at Petco.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why don't we want this product? Why San Diego wouldn't we want this product? Like, this is awesome. This is so fun. And you go to those games, like real soccer games. They're so exciting. And so I'm all for it. Do I go or do I pay attention? No. And I don't go only because I kind of live far from San Diego now, and it's hard to get out. But and obviously you can't do anything right now. But do I support him? The loyal, the SD loyal and all that stuff? Like, hell yeah, man. Like, do it. I don't know anything about it though, which is why I stay off of the TKF United podcast. Like, I let DK and Alan and those dudes talk because they know what they're saying. I play FIFA. That's the extent.
Wow, imagine getting excited for a tie.
Wow, ties. No, but it's a great thing that's happening here in San Diego. I'm all for San Diego sports, and now it's soccer, so that's always great. So hopefully next season, if they do have fans, we'll go ahead and have you down, Dallas, and we'll talk to you about what's going on the field. And if not, we'll just take the stones down until we figure out a new game that we're watching.
I want a basketball team in San Diego.
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah. I would immediately be a fan. I'd buy stuff immediately. I'd probably buy a half season ticket or something. Like, they're just Live NBA. I mean, I love the NHL too, but that's never going to happen in San Diego.
Hey, no, we have the goals. So, I mean, $2
Yeah.
beers, right?
Right? Yeah. Right?
But
I remember I take my wife. My wife, she enjoys going to baseball games sometimes when the mood strikes. And we live up in Temecula, so we go to Lake Elsinore games quite a bit. Very loosey goosey, kind of show up for an inning and leave. But
yeah.
we went to a Gulls game, and we had so much fun. I mean, it was $2 beer night, so that helped. But it was so much fun. We pre-gamed in the parking lot. We went inside. We hung out. I mean, and she was like, and we only had to leave because my daughter was maybe 3 at the time, and it was just she was done. She was done for the night.
Yeah, no, that's
but
they rule the house.
yeah. So we want to go back as much as we can. Live hockey is so fun.
No, definitely. And I can't wait until all sports come back here in San Diego. This time flew, really. Dallas.
Oh, yeah, we're already out. Oh, can I do a quick plug?
Absolutely.
Of course.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Go ahead and plug anything. I know we have the Talk Chrome to talk about a little bit that we can get to. Hopefully, we can get you back on.
I was just going to, I'll bring that up real quick. I'll just say, if you like baseball cards or any kind of cards, my friend Sean O'Donnell and I started a YouTube channel called Talks Chrome. Talks Chrome, and we're on all social media at Talks Chrome. And you just open up baseball cards on a camera. Most people do it. Like Phil Hughes has a channel and Matt Strom has a channel where they just open up cards and kind of talk about them. Not really, but kind of. And Sean and I wanted to do it a little more fun, so we invited 2 other friends on. Our friend Joe, who writes for American Dad, and then Nick from the Kept Faith, and the 4 of us kind of just talk shit or make fun or be silly while we open up baseball cards.
Nice.
It's really fun.
No,
it's on YouTube.
Definitely, it is fun. I checked it out. Starts on episode 2. We won't talk about episode 1, but definitely want to go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, Mr. Dallas.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Dallas_MC. I'm on Instagram at DalSkips, DalSkips. And then just follow along at the Kept Faith. That's where most of my baseball stuff goes.
Perfect. And with that, go ahead and just stick on a little bit. We're going to go ahead and do a follow-up. Thank you for your time, Dallas, and hope to have you on soon.